Agreed. Now, when I get more of a budget together, I'm going to bring my friend Jake in here, who might be watching this right now, to like do a bunch of reality shows of me in the studio behind my back, doing a Facebook Live and about to hit the actual podcast recorder.
That's
and
awesome.
that would be 3 levels of Inception kicks. Right there. Hey, everybody. We are on the line with Dr. Michael Hynes. This is just Facebook Live. This is kudos to you, sir. You're the first district superintendent of a school system that was willing and actually eager, acting like it's a treat to go on Facebook Live in a world where, there are some of your colleagues are getting, making headlines for other strange things. So I appreciate that. And it just really shows your forward-thinking nature, and you really walk the walk when it comes to this technology stuff. So,
well, I appreciate that. I mean, as a school district, we try to incorporate social media a lot. We try to be as transparent as we can, so we use that as a conduit in many ways, for people who can't see within the school. So we're very comfortable with it.
Awesome. Well, it's certainly shining through loud and clear. Any questions for me before I actually hit the button we go on the podcast record?
No, I'm very thankful for the opportunity to speak with you. So thank you.
Well, likewise. And I mean, your tech department is second to none already. I've gone back and forth, make sure that we're all connected, and we are. No hitches. It's absolutely amazing. And what was I thinking of just a moment ago? Oh, well, of course, if you have any questions for Dr. Hynes, the comments are open. I'm not going to acknowledge those questions until we're actually done with the podcast record. Sure. And if this is you're watching this and it's not actually live anymore, you can still ask questions, and I'm sure Dr. Michael will be able to respond to those online, offline, right there. So, you ready to talk, Michael?
I am ready.
All right, we are going to go live in 3, 2, and I hit the button the wrong time when I was counting down, so we're going to do that live in 3. First time I did that ever. 3, 2. We are live with Dr. Michael Hynes. Michael, are you ready to talk?
I'm ready, Nathan.
Dr. Michael Hynes is an educator, scholar, and thought leader. A public school superintendent of schools on Long Island, New York. It's his mission to spread the importance of a holistic approach to educating children. Dr. Hynes received his doctorate in educational administration from Dowling College. He has also undergone professional training to integrate organizational learning and school leadership in programs at New York University, Stony Brook University, and Harvard University. Dr. Michael Hynes, welcome to the talk.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Your talk is called Why P's Are the Key to a Successful Education. I'm going to ask you to unpack that P's acronym, and I'd love if you can just summarize and let us know about those 4 different types of light bulbs that you reference as well.
Sure, will do. To the best of my ability, I try to make this really quick. The TED Talk was about first my experience as a student way back in the 70s and the 80s, and I think a lot of people have this very similar experience. So the first part was my elementary experience, and I liken that to a 120 watt light bulb. I was just loved everything about it. It was a lot of art, a lot of music, a lot of teacher nurturing, a lot of projects, and I thrived in that arena. Once I moved to the junior high level as far as a student, that would be in grades 6 through 8 or 7 through 9, depending on where you are. My light bulb began to flicker. I was having difficulty, not from a cognitive standpoint, at least I'd like to think it wasn't cognitively, but I found my friends were going to different classes. They were going to higher end classes, and we started ranking and sorting kids, and I started to become very disconnected. And then once I reached high school, my light bulb was off, I would say, when I was in 10th grade. And at that point, I became the class clown, and I was really disenfranchised from my educational experience. Whereas when I ended up barely graduating, I graduated in the bottom 10% of my class, and at that point, my light bulb was completely shattered. I couldn't wait to get out of school. I hated it. I promised myself I would never go back into school at all. And like I said in my TED Talk, clearly I lied to myself because now I'm a superintendent, which is the ultimate irony in some ways. And the TED Talk really focused on 4 different areas: physical growth, which is what P stands for, PEAS, physical growth, emotional growth, academic growth, and social growth. And what I try to do in 18 minutes is take us through a journey as far as how school systems really began to only focus on one, which is academic growth. And that's only really in 2 different components. That's in ELA, English Language Arts, and that's in mathematics. And since 2001, since we've been focusing on those different components, we've lost a lot over the past 18 years, 17 years. We've lost recess. We've lost a lot of ways of where students can actually just be and just relax and just to enjoy. Play has been stripped away from our primary schools, more so kindergarten through 2nd grade. And I talk about this pendulum that has swung so far in one direction, and I believe it's our collective responsibility to swing it back toward a balanced state, which is, again, why I think peace is so important. So that's my really short Reader's Digest version.
That's a great Reader's Digest, Michael. I love it because we're listening to this Talk Universe. You're some sharp people, but I know for me there's still hope for me too. With all of that, I've been a cracked light bulb. I've been a flickering light bulb. I've been a burnout bulb, and maybe some of Talk Universe has been as well. And I just love that acronym PEAS for physical, emotional, academic, and then the social, because we're seeing with the screens and with the loss of being grounded and the loss of recess time and just the hyper teaching for the tests, we're stripping that, and you've got this really integrated, holistic model that more people need to be aware of. I love what you've done with recess in your district, Michael, just in keeping with what you've already said. Can you share about that for a little bit too?
Sure. It's interesting. In New York State, I would say on average, a recess block for elementary school. First of all, there are some schools that don't have any recess at all, which I think is criminal. I actually think it's abusive. But on average, it's probably between 12 and 15 minutes. If you're lucky, maybe it's 20. What we've done is we've made it 40 minutes. And by doubling recess, the floodgates opened as far as what we've seen. We've seen unwanted behaviors within the school day in the classroom diminish, and actually we've seen attendance increase. I mean, those are desired outcomes. Ultimately, in the end, there are lots of other things. There are different spokes on that wheel. Recess is just one of them. But if you didn't, this is a very interesting fact, only 8 states mandate recess within schools. And a recent CDC report just came out last January, which is crazy. The thing is, federal prisoners are mandated to have at least 1 hour of recess every single day, but only 8 states are mandating recess, and maybe you get 20 minutes. So clearly, like I said before, it's so unbalanced. We need to really right this equation in some ways.
Well, and one of the things that you rightfully did, just from a leadership perspective, Michael, in your talk, you really credited some of the forward-thinking board members and community as part of your support. So can you, this is a little off topic a little bit, but I'd love for you to talk about what you're doing and continuing to do to build up that positive social equity. Obviously, you're doing a lot of good things right. Obviously, it wasn't easy, but how did you start doing that with all of these innovative ideas and be able to make sure that people feel heard and safe and then confident moving forward with some of these new ideas?
Yeah, that's probably the most important question, to be honest with you. It's impossible, I think, for any superintendent or any school leader to do anything without the support of their Board of Education. And as you said, and I said in my TED Talk, we have an outstanding Board of Education who clearly their heart's in the right place when it comes to what's in the best interest of kids, even if other school districts aren't doing something like doubling recess. To get, I hate the word buy-in, but you need at least a critical mass to move any idea forward. Everybody has great ideas, but to move it from point A to point B is 2 totally different things. So we have a lot of trust. I have to be honest with you. Like I was telling you offline, there's a lot of transparency here. We use social media a lot, so it allows multiple windows for the school community to see what's happening within the school day. We celebrate those things. We invite the community. We seek their input when it comes to a lot of things. And we came up with a 5-year plan. And within a 5-year plan, Recess is just one of those things. There are multiple other things that we are moving forward that's attached to one thing and one thing only, Nathan, because there was no real vision or mission before. The board has charged us with coming up with a very clear one, and here's what it is. Every child, I said this in the TED Talk, we're in school for 14,000 hours, but many of us leave and we don't know what we're good at. We don't know what we're talented at. We never know what our potential is. So our mission when the kids are here for 13 years or 14,000 hours, our job is for every single child to figure it out and for us to make sure they know what those things are. When that's your mission, then you change a lot of the things that you've been doing in the past. A lot of the things that we do in schools, we don't challenge the assumptions that we make, and we started challenging them. The removal of play for kids who are very, very young, all the research points toward kids need to play often, and not just for 5 or 10 minutes. And they need to play, Nathan, when adults get out of the way, so it's self-directed play. These kids, they are told what to do from the moment they wake up until the moment they go to bed. Every single, what to wear, what to eat, what to drink, what sport they're going to play, what after-school activity they're going to do. The board understands how important it is that we provide those other experiences for kids. And again, by having a 5-year plan and making those decisions and hanging our hats on that particular plan is what allows us to move this forward.
Well, and you're helping these creative children. We're all creative beings. Get out of lockdown mode and actually manifest what they were created to start creating. Just very briefly, Michael, if you can talk, we touched on it, but I'd love to hear your viewpoint from a superintendent and leadership perspective, this entire school district there on Long Island. You mentioned it was a good idea, but it wasn't actually executed. It wasn't actually activated, and it wasn't implemented. So what was the key for you going beyond just, hey, we have a bunch of great ideas, and we'll sit around and have brainstorm and shuffle around and feel like we're accomplishing something? What was it maybe in your background, or what did you know that needed to be done to actually implement and activate this thing with accountability?
It's a great question. It's really interesting because it's not rocket science what we're doing, but the rocket science is actually propelling it forward, right? So the first thing I did my first year, Nathan, was I interviewed over 350 people within the school district and across a whole different bunch of strata as far as community members, business owners, board members, teachers, educators, students. And I asked them 3 questions, right? I'll make this as quick as I can. Mm-hmm. But the 3 questions were, what's working? And why, what's not working and why, and then from a self-preservation standpoint, what do I need to do in order for me to stick around for a while? Because that's very important too. You need leaders to stick around to move something forward. So I cobbled together all their answers. It was qualitative in nature. Basically, there were patterns and themes throughout. That became our 5-year plan. One of the things was they wanted kids to enjoy school again. And there's no quicker way for kids to enjoy school than to allow them to do something that we know is very important, which is to double recess. And I also mentioned too, Nathan, I shadow kids in every single grade level. So I got to see firsthand what kids needed and what they wanted. So I was able to report back to the community. We have something called the State of the District. And basically we talk about everything that's happening this year, what we're going to do next year. And again, there's a plan, and there's a plan that's talked about often. I call it the Energizer Bunny. He has the drum with the two drum handles. That's all I kept doing was keep hitting the drum, banging the drum, saying this is what we need to do and why. Any questions? I have open office hours here, so people come and drop by whenever they want. They voice concerns. If they trust you, John Maxwell says this all the time. They don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. If they think that you care, they're going to, for the most part, listen to what you're saying. And that's what we have here.
We've been enjoying this great conversation based on Michael Hynes' most recent TEDx talk, Why Peas Are the Key to a Successful Education. It has morphed very quickly into a leadership conversation, which I love, and I'm sure you're enjoying as well. We're going to be right back, and we're going to pivot right back to the Blitz round. We're going to talk about the actual talk, and we'll be back in just a moment. And we're back with Dr. Michael Hynes. It's time for the Blitz round, where we're going to pivot back and talk about your talk and the back talk, the preparation and the performance of your talk. Are you ready?
Oh, I'm ready.
All right. Were you selected to speak, or did you apply?
I applied, actually.
And how was that process for you?
It was pretty rigorous, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
I was more nervous during that round of interviewing than I was for my dissertation defense, to be honest with you.
For your doctoral dissertation, you're more nervous about applying to get your TEDx talk approved than your doctoral.
It was so important to me, Nathan. It was so important that I really believed everybody needed to hear what I had to say, because it's not happening enough throughout the nation.
A very cause-driven and cause-sensitive individual, for sure. And that's when you know I mean, you mentioned a Maxwell quote. I'll give you another Maxwell quote. Leaders go from me to we, and that is what you're talking about. These kids not having enough recess and being hyper graded on one area. I'm going to get back out of the way, Talk Universe. Talking about nerves, let's talk about the performance of your talk. Did you have nerves, or were you in the zone, or neither, or both?
Both. I had nerves, and I would say once you stand on that red dot, I would say within 20 seconds, I was totally fine. But nerves, I think, are very healthy because you care. So I look at that as a positive thing.
What's a tip, a technique, or a tool that helped you?
I practiced a lot, actually. I practiced all over the place. I probably, like I said, I more than my dissertation, I was more nervous about it. I didn't memorize it. What I did was I had different themes throughout, and I tried to chunk them together, and I tried to make sure it was 18 minutes. But I practiced probably for 3 months straight, at least an hour and a half a day.
This is the cut for time question. What was the most painful part of your talk that you had to cut out?
Oh, gosh. Talking, yeah, that's tough.
It hurts.
Because you do have to reduce a lot.
Kill your darlings, Hemingway said, I believe.
Yeah,
Kill your darlings.
It's really true. I think more about my daughter. I had a lot more about my daughter who has Down syndrome in there, and I extracted a lot of it, or I cut out a lot of it to give it some, I wanted to have more meaning, but I think it worked out okay.
So it's a performance. So what was the most unexpected, strange, or just plain weird thing that happened during or right before your talk?
I drank about 2 gallons of water. I drank about 2 gallons of water.
Well, that's both. That happens before and possibly during if you're not careful.
It's really true, and biologically speaking, I regret doing that.
I could be a really horrible podcast host and keep asking you some follow-up questions. We're not going to go there, Talk Universe. Instead, I want to encourage you to visit Michael Hynes' Facebook. Actually, no, we're going to give the LinkedIn as well as a website to the school district, as well as the LinkedIn profile that you can go and be able to connect with Superintendent Hynes. His talk is called Why Peas Are the Key to a Successful Education. You go to our show notes page at bethetalk.com, and we'll have a little link for you right there. And we're going to be right back with Dr. Michael Hynes in just a moment for the final word of advice. And we're back with Dr. Michael Hynes and the final word of advice for Talk Universe.
Yeah, my advice would be to make sure whatever you are talking about is part of your DNA, that you're so passionate about it, that it's the first thing you think of when you wake up and the last thing you think about when you go to bed. Because if you are passionate about it, it will resonate with your audience.
Dr. Michael Hynes, thanks so much for taking time out of your busy schedule and adding value and your wisdom to Talk Universe today.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Nathan.
And that's a wrap. Now we are out of the one level of inception. And we did the one kick, and we are still on Facebook Live. So, what's that?
Duly noted.
Duly noted. Yeah, well, I have to kind of throw that in there. So if you have any questions, comments for Dr. Hynes, and we are offline like we are going to be in just a moment, just go ahead, type those in. He'll be monitoring this, I'm sure. Or James, the amazing tech assistant, will be doing that for Dr. Hynes, and Dr. Hynes will actually answer that. Hey, everybody, thanks so much. I'm going to go offline with Dr. Hynes. We're going to have a private, our second brief private conversation, and thanks so much, everybody.